Hello, everyone. Welcome to East West Horizon. This is California, and I'm Sylvia Tian. Today's topic is how the international online propaganda war will stir up the world in the digital age. Ukraine war brought a lot of shock to everyone. It turns out that war is no longer just about weapons, cities, and death. This war is one Russia against multi-Western countries, and one versus again of countries. This war is a multi-dimensional attacks, such as confiscation of assets, kicking out of SWIFT system, shorting stocks, boycotting sports, arts, and animals. Russia's countermeasures are cutting off energy supplies and food exports, which is also quite shocking. Just imagine if a country that has no ability to counter-react, will it be easily terminated? What this program wants to discuss is the most characteristic way created in this war. That is the propaganda war of online media. This propaganda war crosses national borders. It is for the interests of major countries using double standard or no standard at all. Starting from the beginning of the Russian-Ukraine war, Zelensky used the internet to play emotional cards. Western propaganda did not discuss the cause of this war at all, as if all of them lost their memory. All the media cover up the fact that NATO has expanded eastwards 5 times. Regardless of the history, all of the Western propaganda just attacks one point, which is war is evil. No matter what, as long as you fight back, you are a war crime. The most popular opinion on the internet is that the use of force is evil, the invasion is a crime. But how about the United States invaded Iraq? Was the United States evil? Did the United States commit a war crime by bombing the Yugoslavia? In the past 200 years, the United States have used force for 180 years. How can this be explained? The theoretical logic of war is evil cannot rationalize what many Western countries have done in the past. This couple is an American couple who firmly believe that Russia is an aggressor. When the reporter asked whether the U.S. invasion of Iraq was an aggression, the man said, "That is history. I'm only talking about the present now." Avoiding problems using double standards, forgiving yourself, and blaming others, this is what Westerners believed they could do. Not only that, in early days of the Russian-Ukraine war, there were rumors on Weibo. It rose, no matter what, the person who started the war deserved to die, and his whole family deserved to die. These posts went viral from a decentralized KOL. The number of reposts increased from tens of thousands to even hundreds of thousands. When did Chinese netizens become like the extreme leftists in the United States, naive and pure anti-war? Who is this anti-war propaganda against? Senior CIA officials in the United States admitted that they overthrew more than a dozen Latin American and Central American governments in the past 20 years. What propaganda war did they deploy at that time? From an independent point of view, the conflict is a stark demonstration of Russia's desire to use military power to curb the endless expansion of NATO. The United States, which is unwilling to fight Russia directly on the battlefield, is trying to use its soft power to mobilize international propaganda and achieve its goal of weakening Russia in various fields. Russia is not afraid to express its own views because of its relatively weak position in international communication, but strives to present the internal causes of the Russian-Ukraine conflicts from the historical and geopolitical background. The US and European countries have blocked Russia's voices and used the so-called political correctness principles to define the voices representing Russia's position as traitors and proxies at home. Is this fair? Taiwan is not Ukraine, and it has no sovereignty. U.S. Congress are once again creating conflicts. At this time, it is out of time to use safeguarding sovereignty and opposing aggression. What are the excuses that can be used? Of course, democracy, freedom, and human rights. The three reasons that always used. The high-speed development brought about by China's active learning children, efficient working adults, and self-entertaining elderly people is not what the West wants to see. The West hopes that the Chinese people will have the freedom to take drugs at will, have a democracy that can subvert the regime at will, and have human rights that can make most people degenerate. Look at the United States now. The majority can choose at will marijuana and flavored vaping. These products can be dozens of times more toxic than the opium of the past, and people feel free. Just yesterday, cannabis consumers and industry players gathered in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park for the annual Cannabis Festival. The festival draws thousands, where attendees smoke marijuana freely while enjoying live performance. Not only that, domestic educational institutions in the United States are giving elementary school children the opportunity to learn all kinds of sexual knowledges and realize gender selective democracy as their human rights. If it is not for poor mathematics, pornography, gambling, and drug can be popular and can be the great example of using one's democracy and human rights. In the meanwhile, people who have to keep silence that comes with political correctness, do they have freedom of speech? How should the former sick man of East Asia who experienced the Opium War face democracy, freedom, and human rights from the West? Can he think independently, learn from history, and learn to reject it? Is it possible to see through the purpose behind these labels? The war of propaganda is not only against Russia and China, but also against India. US pressures India not to buy Russian energy. India replied, yes, India did increase energy purchases from Russia, but the increase is less than the total purchases of EU countries in a day. Xu Peixi, a professor at Communication University of China and director of the Center for Global Governance of Cyberspace, said that information warfare in the digital age is the key to interpreting the current Russian-Ukraine conflict. The power to characterize war as a good and evil does not depend entirely on the truth, but often on the power of the state to communicate, adding to the perception of peace and justice. Do you still remember the social media account Jixian, who worked in Kiev? As soon as he arrived in the Ukraine, he was confronted with war. Poor man. It is indeed difficult to compare personal frustration with the game of great powers at the same level. Do you still remember the reason why Chinese crossed the Yalu River? At that time, China, which was in ruins, tried its best to fight the Korean War, in order to maintain no war from then to now. If you were a national decision maker, how would you choose? The current new online propaganda is particularly clever use of this new era of social media, grassroots, and individual citizens. Professor Xi Peixu said that using oneself as the narrative subject and using platform accounts as the main channels to express mixed opinions, which has added new variables to the game of propaganda among major powers. The truth that everyone sees may have been taken out of context for countless times. Social media platforms thus constitute unique venues for filtering and refining information. From the Arab Spring to the turmoil of US Russian interference in elections, and then to the Russian Ukraine conflict, the game of international propaganda in the digital age is out of control, which constitute an important dimension of national security. Thank you for being with us. I'll see you next time.